Good morning, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of 3D Disciples Digging Deeper. I am Mia, and today I've asked Amber, who's been married for 5 years, and Rob, who's been married for 4 years, to join me. The reason I've asked them to join me is because I live with my brother, and I have seen him plan his engagement all the way up until his nuptials. And along the way of watching him go through all of this process, there were several things that made me decide to say, I possibly am not going to get married. So I wanted to ask my more seasoned co-host a couple of questions today about their marriage. So to start off, I just want to ask them, why did you guys decide to get married?
Well, look at God. Good question. It's funny that you asked that question. My husband knew that I was his wife, and I was like, what? How do you know this? This is weird. But even before then, I remember walking down the steps of the church and looking at that man, and I was like, he loves me. And literally like 2 seconds later, he was like, I love you. I was like, I know, it's so weird. So, I really think that, his pursuit of me was very attractive. He didn't come up to me the first day or anything. He was like, I've been watching you for about 10 months. And I was like, wow. And then he didn't come directly to me. He went to my pastor. He went to, my cousin. And so he was tactical. And I don't think I ever had anyone pursue me in that kind of manner. But, it really was kind of it was attractive to me for sure. And so I think God, being in him, speaking to him, knowing him, kind of gave me confidence to pursue the marriage with him.
Okay, now for me, we had we started dating in high school. So after so long, it's like the only logical thing is kind of take that next step in commitment. So that was kind of what I won't say forced, but kind of led us to marriage.
So you guys both wanted to be married at some point? Or
yes. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
He's like, I want to get married. We still here.
To be honest, when I was younger, I didn't really think about it.
Really?
I know a lot of people say that was their dream, married. It wasn't. I was like, if it happens, it happens. That's kind of how I took it.
Okay.
But
So it was always logic. It was not.
Oh yeah, that's all the time.
Men
that's
are logical.
That's how I operate. Yeah.
Well, okay. I mean, I'll let him have that.
Yeah,
I respect that. That's how y'all think, though. Men are logical thinkers, and so he's like, makes sense. Right. Do what makes sense.
So luckily for my brother and his now wife, neither of them, had cold feet. They made it both down the aisle, and they set their vows and everything. Was there ever a point in your guys' relationship that you thought that you might have cold feet, or what were the cold feet of your relationships before you got married?
You want me to start?
Please.
I was like, he was over there pondering. I thought you might have something at the tip of your tongue. I don't know. No. Okay. So, I don't know that I had cold feet, but I did say to the Lord, I was like, if this isn't for me, if I am making the wrong choice, if I'm not hearing from you clearly, I pray that it wouldn't happen. I pray that something, reveal itself that we shouldn't go forward. So, I felt like God was, I don't feel like God ever told me nah, get up out of here, run, hide, hit the heels. I do feel like, other people may have, felt some kind of way, but it was never really announced or spoken. It was just, you could see their actions. And so, but that didn't stop me from continuing to get married.
And for me, when you with somebody that long, kind of the cold feet part of the game is kind of out. With me, it was more of a, so this is it, bro. That's kind of a
last lady.
And that voice wasn't too loud because, like I said, I've been with her since high school. But I feel like anytime you make any big commitment, you always have I don't know if it's a doubt or a reservation, but it's always I guess a hesitance to take that next step, you know.
So a lot of people, I feel like they go into this idea of marriage, or they feel like being married to someone is this person I'm going to be equally yoked to. So I guess, as together we make a full 100%, and they feel like their spouse, or they are going to contribute 50, their spouse is going to contribute 50. But I know personally, just from dating, that it's not always 50-50. Sometimes I'm the 20 and he's the 80, or I'm the 80 and he's the 20. So how do you guys find the time to balance that, or how do you communicate that?
I mean, honestly, I think that we shouldn't be trying to be 50-50. We should all be bringing 100% if we can. But like you said, nobody is 100%, or who would we need? You know what I'm saying? Would I need you if I was, but I think that we should all be whole within ourselves and have a type of independence, a type of, and then also learn how to be dependent, because I think it's different when you get married. You don't realize how much you need to be needed and how much the other person also needs you to need them. Mm-hmm. So, sometimes it's not balanced. Sometimes I'm coming in and I'm like, man, I have to accept all of this. I got to put up with all of this. I got to do all of this, Where's my help? But then in the same sense, he feels the same way on the next day. Like, man, I got to deal with your this. I got to deal with your that, So, it definitely is a learning curve. And figuring out what we will and will not accept, how we will and will not communicate with one another, and just trying to figure out navigating some of those landmines. Okay. Sometimes we don't realize how our words affect another person, and so we're blowing up and creating new problems. But to answer your question, like, you're gonna always vary. We're not gonna always be at 100 together. So you got to recognize that we are human, we are flawed, and we're gonna make mistakes. And so when you can accept that within yourself, then you can accept that within your partner. But if you only expect them to judge you based off your intentions, and never give them the benefit of the doubt, then you guys struggle, trying to find a sense of give and take.
Okay.
I like that. I agree. As long as you can get it up to 100 together, then I say that's the goal. So as far as like Amber was saying, some days you're the 80, some days you're the 20, some days the other person has 0, and you have to be the 100. But as long as you get to that 100. One thing I learned though from being in a relationship is at the beginning of the relationship, I focus more on how this person should act in response to my wants and my needs, But as you grow into it, you learn that you have to be willing to that's a selfish way of looking at it. You have to look at it like, what can I do for this person? Like, how can I read them and see if they're at the 30 today and I have to be the 70? A lot of times when you first start out, it's like, all right, what do you need? Like, you ask a lot of questions, in a relationship. Like, what do you need? What do you want me to do? What's this? But I feel like true growth in a relationship is when you get to the point where you can kind of tell without asking, So you have to do whatever it takes to get to that 100, basically.
I like that. No,
that was good, Rob.
Yeah.
I got a few
nuggets.
I got a few.
So when you said your vows, they say for richer, for poorer, for better or worse, in sickness and health, and y'all know the rest. But this is a 2-part. So what would you say was the hardest vow that you have to say I do to, and what would be something that you now, I guess, where you guys standing now, what would you say you would add to those vows? Something that you feel like this should have been necessary.
I think one of the hardest things that I had to learn in marriage, or the hardest vow for me, was for better or worse. Okay? Because worse happens, y'all. And so, because worse happens, you're like, man, I'm getting up out of here. This joker crazy. I just didn't know how crazy. Let me make my escape plan. But I realized that, my husband, he's one, a man of God. Two, he is a good man. And three, like, look at the fruit he bore with these boys. You know what I'm saying? So we're a blended family. And so my husband had 3 boys, and I'm like, that's good fruit. He produces well. So I have to realize that he might be a little bit crazy, but the end product is good. And so am I willing to give up all this good because of a few crazy moments? I'm like, some days I feel like, yeah. But I had to learn within myself that we're learning and we're growing. And one of the things I wish I would have known early on, being in a blended family, is that there is storming before norming. And so everything was haywire. I was like, these. I was like,
I like rhymes.
Come on, you do. So I'm like, these people are on one. Who are these kids? And who is this man? I'm the only sane person in the house. Now we know that ain't real, but that's how I felt. I was like, these people are going crazy. I don't know what to do. I'm just looking back, outside looking in, like, what in the world? But my daughter, she's the only child. So she's used to having me 100% of the time. Honestly, if I'm honest, being a single mom, I catered to her. And I was her world, and she was my world. And I think sometimes that's a flaw, because really I had my own life before her, so I should have included her in my life instead of making my life about her, because now she has this misconception that it's all supposed to be about her. So when I got married, she didn't know how to take it hold on, I'm not getting 100% from mommy. I got to split this with 5 other people, 4 other people. So it was definitely like raining and pouring over us, and I just wish I would have realized then that this was going to be that kind of process, and I think we would have stuck it out better and differently, because we have a lot of outside factors, parents, grandparents, her father, because he's very present in her life, and so just a whole bunch of stuff. I just wish I would have known beforehand.
So what is one vow that you would have added to your vows at your wedding?
What would I add? I would just, I don't know that it would be a vow, but I just like the analogy of the 3-string chord Pastor talks about, and really having God. Like when God, okay, so you gonna represent God, and I'm gonna represent the wife, and Rob gonna represent the husband. So when we take hold to God's hand, gonna take hold to God's hand, and we take hold to God's hand, no matter how far apart we get, you know what I'm saying? God is still joining us together, so we can be this close or we can be this close, but as long as we don't ever let go of God, we are still in order. You know what I'm saying? We are still in this, and I think that's one of the best things that my husband and I are doing. Like, it's tough. It ain't easy. 5 years and we still figuring it out. So the good thing is, though, we both know who our head is. We both know who our God is. We both are. We both take the vows that we took seriously. And it's a covenant, it's a promise that we made. So that's how I look at it. I'm like, I made a promise before God, and I ain't breaking it.
Okay.
The hardest vow is becoming one. That's the hardest one. I don't know if that's a vow you have to take, but I know that's a part of it. It's becoming one. It's hard enough to control myself and my own thoughts sometimes. So then to have another person that you're responsible for, and to blend that together and say it's not me and her, is we, or is I is both. That's tough, man. That's probably the hardest part of marriage, trying to get two people and that's on one path. That's tough. Yeah. That's tough. That's the toughest thing for me. As far as what I would add, as far as a vow, I would say don't talk when you angry. That's what I say.
That's good.
I don't know if y'all ever try to
good.
have a business conversation when you're already upset. It's not gonna go right. So I would say take 5, take 10, take a few hours, whatever it takes. But do not talk, because a lot of times you're gonna say something that you shouldn't say at that time. So do not talk when you're mad. That's what I add.
That's good. I try to do that. I was like, when I get up, when I think something happened the other week at church, and I was like, ooh, I feel some kind of way. And somebody said, well, why you didn't say anything? And I'm like, 'cause it wasn't expedient. It was not. It could have made things worse if I would have said something. So I'm just going to allow what happened to happen and be good. Because, one, as a wife, I honor my husband. I honor this man that I took this vow with. And so whether I feel like he's honoring me in that moment or not, I still got to be like, oh, I'm honoring him, Lord. I'm so glad you here. I'm so glad I know you because sometimes it's not easy and that's a very misconception. Marriage ain't easy. I want everybody to know marriage ain't easy. So anytime y'all think, oh, I want to be married, just know you got to put in work. Yeah. You got to put in some work. So, I honor him. And so I'm not going to speak because I realize the things that I have to say right now probably ain't pretty and could provoke him further to wrath. And so why would I do that?
Plus, you kind of get off subject. Let's say you upset, you have a conversation. Conversation start turning into, nah, I didn't say that. Or nah, I didn't even mean it like that. So now we talking about what did or didn't make you upset. And what we really was trying to talk about is not even getting addressed. So now it'll be 2 hours later, and I'll stop like, man, what are we talking about? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Let's go get something to eat, man. Because we've been doing this for a while, so.
Are y'all texting? Like, when y'all have these conversations, are these texts, phone calls, or in person? Or, I guess, when it comes to communication, what do you say is the best way to communicate when you could be at work and she's at work, or you're at work and he's at home? So I guess, when you need to have those immediate conversations, right. Is it something that y'all could just text about now that y'all married? Or do y'all have to wait and say, we could talk about this later?
I'll be honest, I don't like texting. Here's what I do. I look at my phone, right? And if I see a long paragraph, I say, all right, I'm going to handle this later. You feel? That's just how, if it's too long, if I can't read it in a couple seconds, nah, we'll have to talk later. Hopefully she won't see this until a little later so I can explain it. But nah. I like to talk in person.
It's funny because I'm a texter, and I mean, me and my husband, we are 10 years apart, and so he's like, pick up the phone. You know what I'm like? I'm just texting away, So sometimes the message is not clear through text, and the person reading it may hear a tone that was never there, and so you kind of avoid a lot being present. I mean, but honestly, if we talking face to face, you might hear a tone that wasn't intended to go that way. You're like, what does that mean? I know early on we were like, I said okay a lot. My husband's like, you always say okay. It sounds very dismissive. And I'm like, but no, I'm just saying it so that you know that I'm here. I'm still listening. And so he's like, but it sounds dismissive. I'm like, okay. I mean, you right. I don't know what to say. Yeah. So it's just, it's still finding. He's like, you college educated. You only got okay. Because that's how, so he used to make fun of me about that. But
I understand because I don't carry on conversations for too long either. So once I feel like I understand what you're saying and you should understand what I'm saying, it's okay.
But even then, like I realized that sometimes the second go around of a conversation, we was never talking about the same thing. We did not understand things the same way. He was talking about a whole nother thing, because the way I hear, I don't know if this is all women, but when he speaks to me, they go through my filters. And I'm like, well, what does he mean by that? And so now I'm trying to figure out what he means by what he's saying when he's like, I meant what I said. And I'm like, but there's something behind it. I know it is. Like, what am I looking for? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like,
what's your interpretation of what you're saying to me?
Why am I interpreting what he's saying? Yeah, I'm always looking for. Look at Rob. He like, that's the problem.
We just
right
say
there.
what we trying to say. That's all.
No, it's like that song. Say what you mean to say. Like, no, there's something else. Like,
y'all don't understand. We trying to get through this as quick as possible. Y'all just don't understand. As soon as possible. He meant what he said. I'm telling you.
So yeah, he's like, I'm very literal. I mean what I'm saying. And I'm like, okay, I still don't know what that means. Like, it's terrible. Eventually you kind of find some level ground, some understanding, but it's still like, especially in difficult situations and difficult conversations, you're always like, well, give me an example, because I don't get it. And then, okay, I'm gonna let you answer, and then I'm gonna come back. But there's something I wanted to say before we end. But go ahead.
What? I didn't have nothing to say.
No. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
You gotta answer the question.
What was the question? What's the question?
Never mind. Okay, back to me.
Go. Move on.
Back to me. Okay. No.
Yeah.
So we're talking about marriage in our Sunday school forum, which is awesome.
Oh,
which is
okay. Right.
Which is awesome to talk about. But I'm just like, I'm trying to figure out some of the like the disagreements, how, like, as a couple, when we have those areas where we disagree, or we don't, like, how can we disagree peacefully? Because I don't want to disagree, and I don't want to go to bed angry. Like, you learn so much in church. You learn all these things. And so I feel like the things that I've learned, I do, but the things that I haven't learned, I don't do. Because I haven't, I'm like, I didn't know I was supposed to learn these things. And now it's like figuring out, okay, what don't I know? And so is that, right or wrong? So I feel like a lot of times in church, we need to make sure that we're having these conversations in front of our young people, that we're having conversations about marriage, that we're talking about what a wife looks like and what a husband looks like. And, there's so many things that I can say that I'm like, I do that, but no, I don't do that and that. So it's like, I wonder how can we dig deeper? How can we make sure that the young folk, because they're growing up and one day we'll be wives and we'll be husbands, what can we say to them so that they're trying to be godly husbands and wives?
I think Amber just became the interviewer. So what would you?
What
would you tell the younger people?
It really just hit me, because I'm like, well, I do this because I was taught to do this. I don't do this because I wasn't taught to, that's what I'm supposed to do. So, and then getting a better understanding of what submission looks like. We talk about wives submitting to our husbands, and as a wife, I want to submit to my husband. But when you're raised by a single mom, and she was raised by a single mom, you have all these independent women, and now you're like, what does submission look like when all I've been raised to do was do it on my own? What does dependency look like, when I haven't had to depend on anyone? And so it really, I really haven't figured all these things out, because submission is something that I'm trying to still learn.
Mm-hmm. Ooh. Okay, Rob, what would you give to the younger men out there?
I would say don't pay attention to what you see on TV. Because for men, a lot of times it's about how many women you can get, and the physical appeal to the woman. It's not necessarily about the personality or what you can, what you can build together. So I would say don't pay attention to the media, first off. Then I would say get yourself together personally. You cannot provide or protect a woman if you don't know how to provide and protect for yourself. So I would say make sure you got your house in order as far as, you have plans, you have you have goals, you have a drive, a passion for something, so that you'll be, because what happens is you'll get into a relationship, and when she starts asking you those questions, like, hey, what are we gonna do? 5-10 years, what's up? If you can't answer, or if you get upset or defensive, then you're not ready for that kind of commitment. I would say any young man right now, start
planning,
not just planning, but work on yourself as far as your self-esteem, how you feel about yourself as a man.
That's
because good. You'll be fighting battles at your job, out, just fighting battles all the time. If your woman can use her words to get you to do certain things, then you're not really being the person that God's calling you to be. So if you're gonna be
she can provoke you to wrath.
Yeah, provoke you. Yeah. So basically, you got to be strong-willed, definitely. So that's all I'd say.
That's good, Rob.
Yeah,
I got a few.
He got some good nuggets.
That might be it. One or two more.
One or two more in there.
I definitely want to thank y'all for just allowing this time just to be interviewed today. I know I didn't ask you guys as many questions as I wanted to ask you, but y'all definitely helped me. I do want to say thank you to your spouses, because I knew y'all before y'all were married. And I mean, I can honestly say y'all have definitely grown into wonderful human beings. You're strong. So you battle every day with just being married. And then to continue on and then want to give advice to people who want to get married eventually one day, and even just to make marriage a good thing, because there's so many times you hear about married men in single women's inboxes and all this, and then they always give a marriage a bad view. Y'all don't mind putting your marriage on the forefront, even if y'all are going through bad things. We didn't talk about bad things or anything like that, but even if you are going through personal things in your relationship right now, you didn't make that known. So I do want to thank y'all for that. I definitely love what I talked about, but thanks for tuning in. We'll definitely see you guys next week here on WHMB 40, Disciples Digging Deeper. Thanks for joining us.